Hello, and welcome to yet another episode of Back to the TARDIS podcast, the podcast where we take a look at every single episode of the 2005 revival of BBC's Doctor Who. I'm Jeff.
Hello, I'm Aurora.
And I'm Lumaine.
And this week, we are discussing Series 10, Episode 5, Oxygen by Jamie Matheson. This episode's good.
It's very good. It's incredibly good, in fact. In fact, it was so good that I'm almost 90% certain that 15-year-old us watching this probably would have called it based, even.
I currently call it based.
I do too. It's incredible like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, so obviously there's the capitalism angle, right? It's very obvious, it's front and center, it's the entire crux of the episode. But before we even get to that point, like, just, it's so good in the first, like, I'd say half of it or so. It's just really good about just making the cold, harsh insurvivableness of space scary in a way that I don't think it really has been in any of new Doctor Who.
I really love the cold open here. I don't think there's when was the last cold open like that?
I don't know.
I don't know. It just makes me think of the one from Listen, though.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
As just sort of like a conceptual staging point for the type of horror that this episode is going to be playing with.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just like you have the opening lecture, and then, like, even though there are suit zombies walking around, it really feels like a disaster movie level of, like, they are fighting against, it's not even malevolent, it is just the coldness and utter uncaring nature of the black void of space that just feels super, super well executed. And I was just loving that first bit when it's really all on that.
Yeah, it's rare we get that sort of grounded take on anything regarding space. It is Doctor Who after all. Hi there, Flux.
Yeah.
So no, that's really nice. And to also have the enemy is purely like the natural environment, but also in a way like that's not really the main like point of attack. It's all like systematic critique, which basically boils down to the Doctor dunking on capitalism for roughly like not the entire 45 minutes, but it feels that good.
He
So
has a good, like, straight 2-minute speech of explicitly saying this is capitalism's fault.
Yes. Very,
unless it's
very
Space Amazon.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if this was a Chibnall episode, it would just be that the company wasn't the problem. It was the AI system that they were using that went haywire.
Yeah, and I think the reason, because there's sort of a double thematic level here between like the impersonal coldness of the space and the impersonal coldness of corporate algorithms, neither of which take the survivability of humans within it into consideration.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's just, I remembered it being good, but I didn't expect it to be this good. It's just so So fucking good. And also like so there's the as I mentioned the space angle to it. But there's also an angle to it of like playing into how fucking terrified Bill is in a way that doesn't really like it doesn't really feel like they've ever leaned that hard into something like that with any of the other companions. They just kind of go on with business as usual, and sure there will be the horror moments or the chase scenes or something, but not anything quite like this.
Yeah. The thing it immediately brought me back to is um that one like sort of prolonged sequence in Deep Breath where Clara is like on her own, and you sort of feel with her character for the very first time this sense of like real terror and tension, and that's ultimately I think what sells the rest of this story for me, is that you can have like a quote unquote like terrifying setting all you want. You can have all the political thematics you want, whether they're based or not. It's like it's still not going to make a good story if you don't like center that tension and like the care for the characters there. And this episode nails that.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. And like the other thing that I was thinking about too is how it handles consequence in a way that like even though let's set aside for a moment how the blind angle is eventually resolved in Monk's trilogy, and just set aside for now the fact that, you know, it's resolved in a way that I think is pretty unsatisfying, and kind of a cop out, but just in the context of this episode, right? I think it's really cool how there's an actual like they managed to pull through, but there is still like a genuine hard consequence for their actions. And you know, while the doctor did the right thing with staying, I think it's interesting noticing that this is like, you know, they have the opportunity to leave and the doctor's like, "No, we're not going to leave. We have a duty to save these people." And he's right, but he does suffer consequences for it, which is he loses his sight.
yeah, there's a cost for it, and I don't know. I've heard that like I was about to say deafness. That's not what happens. The blindness be like, oh, it's disability as punishment, or it's problematic to make a character like blind, um or it's when we get to the monk thing, it's problematic to cure it, and I understand just practically why they wouldn't do the entire rest of the series this way, as much as cool as that could
They
have
fucking
been to
should have
like
though.
keep around. No, yeah, I do get it. And I think I probably would have liked that more. Um, but yeah, in terms of like just looking at this story in isolation, I do think that's good. Not because like blindness is a punishment. It's just it's it lends a type of vulnerability to the doctor that like obviously no doctor would be like happy with that, but I think 12 especially, that like that gets to him, I think, very noticeably in the last scene.
Yeah.
Even though he's like willing to do it for Bill, like there isn't any regret there, but there's still that like vulnerability, which I think adds an interesting dimension to his character for the amount of time that we have it.
Yeah. Um and I think it would have, yes, it would have potentially created some difficulties with writing the rest of the series, and I do understand that, but I think as a daring venture, I think it would be I think it would be interesting to kind of have this section of Doctor Who be have more like there's this really tantalizing idea here of finally actually this show having genuine consequences, and admittedly the blindness would have gone away when he regenerated anyways, which that's fine, sure. um but, it's the same thing of like Clara, how I mean, he does discourage her from it, but the fact of the matter is that Clara basically starts emulating the Doctor and dies because of it.
Yeah, we finally see he's more durable than humans, as he's said, but he's not invincible. What he did would have killed Bill or
Yeah.
any human, um, but he still can't just walk away like it's David Tennant absorbing radiation
Yeah.
in a hospital.
Yeah, absolutely. Um yeah. Um what are your guys' thoughts on the fucking when the blue guy gets introduced and there's
I
just
love
like
that. I thought it was so funny. I don't
That's
know.
good.
I could see why some people might like take issue with it. I just thought it was funny. Like
yeah.
I think it's a fun little inversion, and it's just like I feel like it's a pretty harmless joke, especially
Yeah.
just like them being cringe about it, and then like Nardal's little "some of my friends are bluish" line. Which, okay, to
Which
be
is
fair,
even
now
funnier
knowing
after
what
the
I
shit
do,
that
yeah,
Lucas has gotten into.
I was about to say, now knowing that Matt Lucas is a genuine racist, I'm a little bit. I'm not as keen on that line, but I think in the context it's fine. And like Bill's line of like, "Oh, well, usually I'm on the other end of this," and he's like,
Why?
"Yeah, okay, whatever." And then her asking him how to pronounce his name, and then he's just like, he just corrects her, and he's just so fed up with this shit. And she's
Yeah.
like obviously very embarrassed about it because she knows about like
Yeah.
she gets it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you can do, like, this isn't really edgy, but, like, you can do that kind of humor without it, like, it's obviously not, like, trying to be mean-spirited. It's trying to be like, hey, this is funny, but also, like, isn't this kind of, like, representative of something real that's kind of sad? Like, yeah. It
Yeah.
was fine.
Yeah.
Still more racially sensitive than the B movie. That's my hot take.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you're probably right on that one. Um yeah, and it feels like it's a structure of Doctor Who that's been done a lot before and isn't new or anything, but just how it is executed and how much more they play into the horror angle and all of that stuff is just super super cool. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's. I mean, the anti-capitalism rant is obvious. Like, I wouldn't say famous at this point. It's a well-known feature of the episode, but it's like when you look back at like scenarios like this of like, oh, we're from a company and we're doing this in space. It's almost always like, I don't want to say like Star Trek and how that's just kind of like waved off and it's just like, okay, we're here on this base and there's space people. And the problem has like nothing to do with why they're there.
Yeah.
Or like it's just like an appreciative I'm appreciative of the new angle they went to like tackle what could be considered a very familiar story of like, okay, there's a base,
Yeah.
there's a problem, there's an AI that's malfunctioning for whatever reason, and they never explain why. They never explain that it has to do with cost. It's just like, quote unquote, become bad. Like, you could very easily do that, and you could have still kept like Bill having that tension, the Doctor going blind, Nardal's questionable bluish microaggressions. Like, you could
Yeah.
have done all of that. But yeah, it went the extra mile. I do find it very funny that Jamie Matheson once said on like this like fan show that he was worried it would turn out too political due to its blatant anti-capitalist themes. And I'm like, my guy, you're already there. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. It's too late to worry about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Um I also want to give a shout out to so again, Matt Lucas having a gamer moment aside, um um it's nice that Nardal is finally like actually a part of the episode. Um
Yes.
and uh manages to have good banter, and also I love the bit at the beginning where he's like, "Yeah, I took this part so you can't fly the TARDIS." And he's like, "Yeah, who told you that taking that part would mean that you can't fly the TARDIS?" And he's like, "You." And he's like, "Yeah, lol, fuck you." Dumbass. Um yeah.
Yeah. Their chemistry remains good.
Yeah. No, it's a great fucking TARDIS team, and I'm forever mad that we only got one season of it. It's like, people give uh the Chibnall TARDIS teams flack for being too big, and yeah, okay, maybe adding one additional character was a bit too much, but like you can do a 3-person TARDIS team and have it actually be good and interesting. You just have to be willing to actually do character writing.
I do like the solution that they come up with the problem, because again, it could be very easy to like do a like a classic Star Trek, we're gonna techno babble our way out of this shit, like our lives depend on it. But instead, they kind of do that, but it's also like a very logical thing of like, well, okay, I just changed the scenario of things so that killing them would be more expensive than keeping them alive. And it's just like, wow, that's dark, but also that's like genuinely like creative.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like there's a good logical progression in this episode. I never feel like they're trying to bullshit the scenario. It's always pretty consistent.
Yeah.
I think Bill's thing of like, oh, it doesn't kill her because her battery was low is a little contrived because like was
Yeah,
everyone else
yeah.
on full battery? But
Yeah.
it's like whatever. I can excuse it and just like, well, why didn't the doctor just like say that is explained pretty well. Like, yeah, the suits would have heard it, and we already saw that they're good at using that information. So I think there's a good like progression there that all makes sense, and it lends credibility for why that dramatic tension was allowed to be there.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I do like the episode. I think it just slightly stretches it near the end, but like not enough to really annoy me. It's just like, okay, that's a bit of a stretch to get you out of here, but whatever.
Yeah, it's a stretch and not, hey, Deus Ex random space mineral that solves all my problems.
Yeah. Um yeah, definitely. And no, honestly, well, actually no, I was going to say I really like that Bill's like, "Does that really work?" going and talking to the registering a complaint. And I think it's really funny and telling that actually what happens isn't the corporation being better because a complaint was lodged. It's because 6 months later there is a revolution and they are overthrown.
Yeah, that was sort of just like a hand wave. It's just like, yeah, capitalism ended right there, exactly. We just happened to like come to the end of capitalism.
God, I wish. Oh
So
well.
true.
Um Speaking of being at the end of things, guess what, guys? On the day that we are recording this, Saturday, October 2022, 24 hours remain before Chibnall's finally fucking gone. And we can shut up about
Really?
it. Yes, the last episode airs tomorrow.
I was fuck, I can't remember a cheer song, but yay?
Yeah. It's almost over. I'm going to watch it tomorrow, pretty much just to see what happens at the end. I don't even really care about anything that happens in the episode proper.
Basically, what I also find funny about this aligning of events is that, you know what also is out tomorrow?
What?
Is the season finale of House of the Dragon, which has been doing gangbuster numbers, and good for Matt Smith, because
He looks
he hasn't had to
good for
he hasn't
Matt
had to
Smith
roll
because
this
he
good.
looks really fucking stupid in it.
He does. There's one episode where he has like short doctor hair, and I kind
Okay.
of wish they kept him in it.
Yeah, they should have done
because
that.
because every other time it's been like longer hair, which I guess, Targaryens, whatever
He
the
looks
fuck.
like
But
he's cosplaying Geralt.
you're not you're not wrong. But it's sad that in a show like that, where Matt Smith's character is like this like quasi like, actually I don't know if I'm allowed to say that word on Spotify.
Go ahead.
Bad
Go ahead.
person toward
I can edit it out if it's a problem.
uh person who like pseudo grooms his niece.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well,
And
Targaryen.
yeah, yeah, and then kills his wife. It's sad that he's one of the better Targaryens in this show. That's really sad. But yeah, he's done
This
an
is why I
amazing
don't
job in
watch
that.
Game of Thrones.
Yeah, fair point. So yeah, it's just funny to me that like that's going to be going head to head, and because of the abysmal marketing of this final episode, I'm, plus House of Dragon, I'm not going to be surprised if this doesn't do great numbers at all.
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, it's sad, but yeah, I'm going to be watching basically exclusively for like the end. I've kind of given up hope as long as they don't kill off Yaz.
That would be really funny, though.
It would, but yeah. I can't deny that anymore. It would be funny, but yeah, it's timing in life can be funny sometimes.
Or it's like the two routes. It's that meme of the kid standing at the crossroads. And one is Yaz dies, and then two is Yaz leaves and then immediately arrests someone for an extremely small misdemeanor. Except, okay. Or they just don't pretend, they just pretend that the cop thing never happened because they haven't brought it up. They just pretend that it
I don't think
doesn't
it's
happen.
I don't think it's been part of a story since that episode that I defend that's like about depression and mental health.
Can you hear me?
I think
Yeah.
I think that's it. Yeah. I like that episode for what it's worth. But yeah, I don't think it's come up since then.
Yeah. I don't think it has.
Because it's like the reason that Yaz joined the cops is because she met one of the good ones, and I guess that's all it takes these days.
Thank you, Chris Chibnall.
Yeah.
More like crib shitnall, crap shitnall. There, I got there.
Good job.
Nailed it. Well, anyways, do you guys still have anything more to say on On oxygen?
Um, I think I cover. Oh, I wonder if the effect on the doctor's eyes is like a contact or like digital.
Looks like it might be kind of both, almost.
Yeah, because I checked the wiki when I was watching this, and they said like, oh, a couple of scenes that were like shown in the trailer are of him like during when he's blind, and they like digitally like made his eyes normal.
The
So I'm
Metal
like,
Gear approach. Let's go.
exactly. I made it the fuck up. No. So yeah, that was just interesting. I'd be curious. I might look after this to see if there's like any interviews of like him, like what it's like to like play blind, because I've only really heard that from Charlie Cox, the Daredevil actor, and I know there's like some unique challenges that come along with that.
Yeah.
Um yeah, I think that's it for me.
Okay.
It's a good episode.
Yeah, it's a
Mhm.
it's a real good episode. Um yeah. All right. Okay. Moving on to ratings. Yeah, I mean, as evidenced by the fact that this is going to be another like 30 to 35-minute episode. Um it's just really really good in a way where it's like there isn't really that much to go in super nitty-gritty on. It's just it's honestly, I feel like it might be like taking aside, big special event, like Heaven Sent is an event episode. It's part of a finale. It's big, it's special, it has significance. In terms of just like a normal episode, this might be the best one that we've watched since like I'd say maybe even like The Girl Who Waited. It's really really good. It's one of the best episodes we've talked about on this show, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd give it a, solid S tier.
Hmm. Yeah. Um this is definitely a step up in quality from last week. Not that last week, not that last episode, I should rather say, was bad. It was just kind of here's a rather like tried and true template. Here's Bill and the doctor and their chemistry, and go. This has a little bit more complexity to it, which I appreciate. We get Nardole joining the crew proper. A really clear thematic through line. That's not only present in like the rhetoric that like the doctor preaches, but in how they like solve the problem. Um, there's consequences or a cost for the doctor's actions in a way that like is rarely seen in this show. um Bill continues, her actress Pearl Mackie continues to prove why she was cast in this show. um yeah, good, real good shit all around. I don't know, S tier for me. It's very difficult to get there. I think off the top of my head, like Human Nature and Family of Blood are like kind of my litmus test for that.
Yeah.
Which this isn't. I mean, I don't think nearly anything else in Doctor Who reaches that level, but with that as a comparison, I would say this episode is easily A plus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just a really solid, 1F episode. It's, if I had any sort of criticism, it would be that I don't think the side characters are as strong. Um, I think Bill and Nardole as a supporting cast are strong enough that it doesn't really matter, though. And I think just the whole setting, And the themes of the episode are just really strong and really well woven together. And I think the direction is interesting, and it sort of lends itself into those themes well. And I think the way it ultimately resolves is, it's creative and it's in keeping with the spirit of the episode. I think it's silly at times. I think we forgot to mention that the opening line, space, the final frontier, the Star Trek episode reference. Yeah, it's good. I would say it's like a 9.5.
Yeah. So yeah, next time we will be covering episode 6, Extremis, and this will be very special. It will be the first post Chibnall Back to the TARDIS episode, and we will probably all be talking about whatever the fuck happens at the end of the episode tomorrow. And just probably going apeshit over that, and possibly apeshit over Extremis too. Until then, you can follow the podcast on Twitter at B2TARDISPod. You can support us on Patreon for a number of benefits, such as early access to episodes, the ability to listen in live to episodes being recorded, and potentially even the ability to guest star upon an episode of your choosing. I'm Geoff. You can follow me on Twitter at WheatleyDL for all your various shit posts about the trash-looking Bloober Team Silent Hill 2 remake and other stuff.
Nardole is a Vosh fan. You can follow me. I'm just gonna leave that there. It's true. You can follow us on Twitter at Ahura Borealis for more shit posting needs, occasional existential angst, and thirsting over hot Korean boys and girls. K-pop. I don't just do that with anybody. That sounded really bad. Yes.
You can follow me at Himajoshi Chaser at twitter.com.
And we will see you all next week.